Zach is back. It's the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
All right, welcome back. I'm back. Football's also back as training camp is well underway for the EAGLES Eagles, and they did have the open practice yesterday at Lincoln Financial Field, and we can't wait for the first game of the 2017 season for the Philadelphia Eagles, as it will start off in an NFC East rivalry going up against the Washington Redskins in our nation's capital. Let's head out to the hotline right now and welcome in a man that was actually at the Eagles open practice yesterday, and that's Mr. Invincible himself, the former Philadelphia Eagle, and that's our good friend Vince Papale, who's always kind enough to hop on board with us right now. Vince, appreciate it as always. Thanks for the time, and how are you?
Hey, doing pretty good, Zach. Thanks, buddy. Down here in Cherry Hill, just chilling a little bit, but pretty excited about the football season. And hey, welcome back. It's great to be talking to you, and I'm real excited about just watching yesterday's practice. I was pretty impressed. A lot of good things out there on that field.
23,000 fans, something like that, going into Lincoln Financial Field. We just can't wait for football to return in terms of games. You were at that open practice yesterday. Tell me some things that did excite you.
Well, I was in full throat. I'll tell you one that excited me. I was with Barrett Brooks. I don't really know him all that well, you know. I see him a lot on TV. Had an opportunity to do a couple of events, but we signed for nearly 2 hours. We had a football field line full of people coming to sign, and it was really a great opportunity to get to know him. And I run into a couple other alums. I saw Ike Reese, special teams team, and Quentin Michael were all out there. But I once I finally worked my way and I could get into the middle of the field and see some stuff without being asked by the energetic fans for pictures and autographs and stuff, I got a chance to watch it, and I have to tell you, the first thing that popped out was the hustle and desire and the effort and the quickness of LeGarrette Blount. I texted Doug, and because Doug's a good buddy of mine, and I texted him right after practice, and I said I was just really impressed with him. I didn't expect him to be that quick. I expected him to be a little bit more thick than he is. But you know what I liked about him is he was running every play out, and he was running every running play into the end zone and then jogging back. There was no swagger to him. It was all about hustle. And he really looked good. And another guy that looked good, and he actually, I think, got the biggest cheers of the day. It was Nelson Aguilar. He hauled in a couple bombs. He did a kickoff return against air. They were just blocking, but nobody's trying to tackle. But man, oh man, he showed that acceleration like nobody can accelerate on that team, and lit up to 23,000 people there. But overall, it was the tempo. It was the overall flow of the practice. It looked real good, and you just know the talent and the potential's there. And my God, it's sort of limitless if they can get everything together this year.
You mentioned Aguilar. He's been a big-time disappointment the last 2 years, and he's been a big-time disappointment. But people keep on this time of the year, they keep on giving him words of praise just like you were. What type of season can you think the Eagles could expect out of one Nelson Aguilar this time around?
I see a 40 to 60 reception season from him making some big plays. I think he's going to be an integral part of the team. He's going to be that fourth when they get into that multi-receiver package. He's going to be that guy that's coming in off the bench, and they've got their big three right now. With the two guys that they brought in between Smith and
Alshon Jeffrey.
Alshon, of course, Matthews. So you got Matthews in the slot, but when you get to that 4 to 5 wide receiver slot, this is the guy that's going to stretch it, and it's as much anything with him as everybody's, all us pseudo psychologists have said. A lot of it's in his head, because I've been to a lot of practices, Zach, and the guy constantly is catching that ball. He never stops hustling. He's always the first one on, last one off the field. And he's got to get that confidence to make those big plays in the game. And I think now that he doesn't have to be the guy, so to speak, the one, with the pressure being taken off, I think we're going to see a pretty good season from him. Man, if we could get a couple, 3 catches from him in a game, and multiply it by 3. I mean, there it is. There's 35, 40 catches, and that would be a godsend, especially if he can start stretching the defense. I was also yesterday. Torrey Smith had an opportunity to haul one in, and it sort of slipped through his fingers. But I was pretty impressed with his footwork and his speed. But the question is, does he still have that speed that he once had, or the corners that he was going against just aren't all that great? So I wasn't sort of evaluating the corner play. I was mostly looking at him, and then LaShawn. I mean, I always want to call him LaShawn, but
Alshon.
Alshon.
He's a big fan of yours.
Well, yeah, I was a big fan of his. I actually had a great moment with him, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, go ahead.
When he first came in, somebody asked him about Philly and generally about Philly, and he said, well, I watched the movie Invincible a couple of months ago. This is when he got signed. And he says, I envision myself basically standing like Mark Wahlberg in the end zone after I scored my first touchdown with all those rabid Eagles fans. And it certainly, of course, immediately became my favorite. So what I did yesterday is I took a DVD and put on to Alshon, you are invincible. Welcome to Philly. And here's your Mark Wahlberg primer, Vince Papale, 83. And right before the end of the drills, when they got together at the end of practice, when they got together to do the exchange with the servicemen, he was standing right in front of me on the sideline, and I just says, "Hey, yo, 17, hey," and so he looks around. He had no idea who I was until I introduced myself, and man, you should have seen the smile on his face. And I gave him the DVD on the sideline, and he was showing Aguilar, and he was showing Torrey, and he was showing Matthews the DVD, and he was just so excited, and he was so proud to get it. And then we got a couple pictures on the sideline with him with the DVD, and he made me feel good just because of his reaction. And I told him, I said, "You're a badass, man." He said, "We're really looking forward to that first touchdown," and it was pretty cool. Great moment for me. I really was excited about getting a chance to meet him.
Awesome stuff as we're talking to Vince Papale right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Hey, we mentioned all these wide receivers. I'm still skeptical on Aguilar, but the other three, Jordan Matthews, Alshon Jeffrey, and Torrey Smith, I just look at the quarterback right now that he has some weapons. You mentioned LeGarrette Blount as well. Pumphrey's been a nice little surprise in the training camp period so far. It's going to be nice to see this quarterback actually play with some weapons, Vince.
Yeah, to have those weapons and also the confidence that he's got now this year. He's truly evolved as the team leader. That was one of the things prior to last season that everybody was talking that the team was lacking in leadership. There was no question in anybody's mind who the true leader of that team is, at least on the offense, and that's him. That's Carson. And the other thing is now he understands. He knows the offense, and he's going to be able to direct guys and guide them out on the field. And with Foles coming back and Foles knowing the offense really well too, it's going to be a nice backup situation. So he was sharp yesterday. I really look forward to what's going on, and if they can get that running game shored up. And the other thing that gives him a little bit of confidence is he's got Lane Johnson back. He's
big.
He's got a solid offensive line. Injuries notwithstanding, and guys coming back and pretty healthy. And let's just see how Kelsey is real excited about coming back injury free, and he was disappointed in last season, and that guy 80% of him is better than most centers in the NFL. But they all did a self-evaluation, and they're all coming back hungry, and that's what a 7-9 season does when you lose a few games by a touchdown or less. It makes you hungry, pisses you off. And I want you to come back and show people what you can do. And offensively, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. And, the NFL is saying this could be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. But, the experts, I don't know about that. But, my gosh, they got some talent there. And now it's time to just turn them loose.
And let's stay in the trenches. You look at this defensive line. This defensive line is supposed to be very good. But my one concern about this defense, like everyone, is the corners. Who's going to be covering these guys, especially in the division that has a lot of good wide receivers? How about this defense from what you're able to see yesterday?
Well, that seems to be the contention. I think the linebacker situation would be pretty solid. I hope everything I hope that the Kendrick situation isn't a distraction. We certainly don't want that to happen. Jim Schwartz has now an opportunity to evaluate all of his personnel and decide who he's going to put in there, and how he's going to use Vinny Curry and how he's going to use his linebackers but as you said, Zach, the biggest concern, the safeties are fine. The biggest concern is what's happening on the corners, and they brought in some veteran help. We'll see. We've got a kid back from last year, in 31. We'll just see how it transpires, and maybe you'll have to come up with some schemes to give him a little bit of help on the man-to-man coverage or get him into these zones and get more pressure. Attack the guys up front a little bit more. We'll see what Jim has up in his sleeves, but everybody has to do a better job, and this isn't pointing the finger at anyone. It's just you got to execute, and certainly the offense and defense have to think about what they did last year and just bring it on this year. But one of the biggest strengths, of course, without a doubt, are the special teams, and don't forget them, and what a tremendous impact that they'll make. I had a great time. I saw Donnie Jones yesterday, and I just went up to him and had a little conversation. I said, "Man, would I have loved to have covered punts for you?" And he said, "I would love to have you. I'd love to kick and punch with you out there." I said, "Well, maybe a mutual admiration society, but our kicking game, our coverage game, we'll see. We'll see what happens." And they put they put Nelson back there, and Darren Sproles. You never want to count Darren out, especially when he's returning punts, if he's going to do that again this year. But pretty solid teams, and they can flip the field. And you put a tilt in that field because of the kicking game and Donnie, or the coverage teams or the return teams. It makes a big difference.
Well, they always have a good special teams unit. Chris Marigo's also one of those special teams players as well. But I'm just curious because we had his college coach, Larry Fedora, on talking about Matt Collins when they drafted the kid out of UNC. And it looks like he could really catch the ball, but then special teams, this has been a kid, when he got hurt in college, he would always say, "Hey, coach, you want to take me out for some reps on wide receiver, that's fine, but you never take me out on special teams." Did you get a chance to see any Matt Collins yesterday? Because everything I hear, this kid's supposed to be a big-time special teams player.
He's a big-time athlete. He's beautiful. I mean, the kid's just so fluid. He's long. He reminds me a lot of Mike Quick.
Okay.
He's got that. Mike Quick is standalone. He's iconic, and there's that. This is not the North Carolina Tar Heel thing, because Mike being from Carolina, but this kid is just as fluid as can be. He's tall. He looks really strong, and none of the coverage stuff that they're doing is live, and I just can't wait to see the first game and the first preseason game, because he's going to be out there and making something happen. And he's wearing number 10, and I have a certain affection for 10 because that was my high school number at good old Interboro High School in Glen Olden, Delaware County, Pennsylvania. That was the number I wore when I was a senior. Yes, so all good, man. I can't wait to see Collins. So, the receivers seem to be set. Question marks with the running backs, and we'll see how that transpires, and it's see what Howie does. It's always interesting. Something happens every day, but in the end, it's all down to execution. Got to make it happen.
Wrapping up with Vince Papale, who joins us right now, talking to the former Eagles player, of course, Mr. Invincible himself. Since you mentioned the coach and Doug Peterson, and you mentioned how close of friends you guys are, people I talk to, fans and even myself, we're a little bit dubious of Doug just because we weren't overly impressed with your number one, with some of the decision-making. Since you know him so well and you know his philosophy, give me a little bit on the coach and why you think he'll turn out to have a nice long tenure here in Philadelphia.
Well, first of all, he cares a lot about the players. He cares a lot about Philly. And my wife is his realtor, and when they found out they were coming to Philly, his wife Jeannie said to Janet, "Hey, Janet, find us a house. We're coming home."
Did he get a nice house?
In Morristown, yeah, you can just imagine. I like it. I actually helped pick it out. I said, "Doug, this is where you want to be," because I already have my spot figured out for him. But I see it. What I see about Doug is, first of all, he wasn't happy with what the way the season transpired last year, and it's really easy because he's the head man, and everybody wants to point the finger to him. And he took a couple risks. But he was doing it for a reason, and they didn't turn out. But he took some risks in the other side of things, and they did turn out. If a guy makes a catch, if a guy makes a tackle, if they might get that call, that should have gone their way, that didn't go that way. It's a 9-9 it's an 8-8 or 9-7 season. And then all of a sudden it's a whole different look season, and the look whole different look see, and the way people are approaching their feelings about the team and also about Doug. First thing he did this year is he went in, he evaluated himself, and don't forget, when he came in just a week before they get rid of his number one quarterback, his father passes away, so he has to go down and deal with that and with his very close family. And then he comes back. He doesn't have his number one quarterback. He's got a rookie that he thinks is going to be his man in a year or two, but now he's thrust into a starting situation. He's got to install an offense. He's got to become a head coach for the first time. He's got to work with the assistants and get a feel for them, and also understand that as a head coach, there's more to just coaching and teaching out there. You have all these other responsibilities to the press, to the team, to the organization, so many other things that are pulling him so many different ways. And he said, as a matter of fact, he says, I am so much better prepared to come in this season than I was last year. I had no idea, what it was going to be like. But, he's ready to go. And if you get to know him and know him the way I know him and see his interests in music, in people, in life, and the world around him, his caring about the players that he's coaching, the people he surrounds with, the family man that he is, just give the guy a shot. You're going to like him. And he reminds me, and people laugh, he reminds me a lot because to me he's a Renaissance man. He reminds me a lot of Coach Dick Vermeil. And I'm going to tell you something. You don't have to listen to me. You talk to Coach Vermeil. You talk to guys like Ron Jaworski, the real football guys, and both of those guys just think he's got what it takes, and just give him a shot. And I think this year he's going to prove that he's going to be around for a few more years.
Vince, before we let you run, since I know how important the game of football is to you and how many life lessons it taught you and your story, and then also your son currently plays football as well. So we know how much family and football means to you, but there was that study that did come out the other day that 110 out of 111 NFL players with CTE from the deceased brains that they were studying. Just as someone that has so much of their importance on football and family and just playing the game the right way, and we know football is a dangerous game, but it teaches a lot of great lessons. What was your reaction to that CTE study that was released the other day?
Yeah, that was, I don't know. I don't know all the details of it because I was away. I didn't study it all that much. I just heard the results of it, of those. I don't know, was that 110 brains that were studied? Was that 110 out of how many, whatever the sample was?
Out of 111.
Out of 111.
That were just NFL players. They did study other people that were in college, other people that played in high school, but the big number was 110 out of 111 NFL players had CTE that they studied.
Of the ones that did donate their brain for the
yes.
study. Yeah, that's pretty alarming and pretty disturbing. And there's some talk now that it does, that CTE also now sort of mimics or can lead to ALS. That's another, well, I'm not saying more about that. We just lost one of my buddies and neighbor, sure. Kevin Turner, to ALS. There's so many different life lessons to be taught in football, and all those guys that participate in the sport. And certainly me, people say, if you'd have known that you'd gotten banged up the way you got banged up when you were playing, would you do it again? And I say, well, I just look at football. If you're going to look at it from a business point of view, it's like an income statement, and those injuries are the cost of goods sold. That they're the things that are going to go out there and affect you. Me right now, I just turned 71. I don't feel it. With a 20-year-old son who's playing ball at Delaware and a 23-year-old daughter, Gabby, at the Sixers, I don't feel it. I don't feel any after effects. But, I certainly am participating in the concussion settlement, and I'm looking forward to the MRI to see if there's anything that's pecking away at my brain that's going to affect me later on. But, the thing is that, with youth football and everything else, is make sure you're doing your research. These kids have the best equipment. My buddy Billy Osborne, who's a former NFL player and a guy that's been in this Delaware Valley neighborhood forever, you could talk to him about the ACES helmet that he's got that is really revolutionary in terms of shock absorption. And that's a big thing. But a lot of it, aside from the good equipment and the stuff out there and the technology, is just proper coaching and teaching, especially for the young people. And I know parents are freaked out. They're pulling their kids out of football, and they're putting them into soccer and all kinds of other what they consider to be a non-contact sports, and it pains me a little bit. But you got to do what's right, what you think is what you need to do for your kid. Vinny, he had a couple concussions. One was like stupid because it was from skiing, and the other one was very minor because he did a face plant because he wanted to catch the ball out of bounds and forgot to put his hand down, and he's had no effects after that since. I've had one or two from football. I know I had one or two when I was a pole vaulter and high school and college because I was going 15, 16 feet in the sawdust, so that wasn't real good back in the day. But, just got to be careful and be diligent and get the best equipment you can. And you young people, you parents out there that have young kids playing ball, there's a lot of life lessons out there from football. And one of them that you can teach them is make sure that you keep an eye on the coaches and make sure that the coaches are all aware of what's going on. And I think that it ought to be right now, Zach, at any level, I don't care what it is, that there's got to be some sort of a certification process that anybody who's going to coach any football at any level has to be certified, just like they would if they were an official or whatever it is. They just have to be certified and go through that certification process.
Well, Vince, hey, I always appreciate your energy and your perspective whenever we do talk football. Thank you so much, and let's do it again when the Eagles are on a nice little win streak this year. All right, sounds good?
I hope so. Hey, can I take a second and plug
go
my
ahead.
new book that's coming out?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Hey, this is really cool. It's Danny Frank's number 53. You know the guy in the movie, the white knuckle guy that grabs me?
Yes.
And he says, I'm tired of seeing you getting your butt whipped. Well, he is. He's a very successful now entrepreneur down in Greensboro, North Carolina. He's my best friend, teammate. We were captains together. We were through everything together, and we actually had a game against the Redskins where I had a play similar to the end of the movie, and I made the hit on the Redskins receiver and on an audible, and then he recovered the fumble, and we were on the sideline just raising hell, and they took a picture of us. We threw our heads back, and it's called The Last Laugh, and it's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And we now are writing this book called The Last Laugh. They said it couldn't be done, and we did it. And it's going to be a conglomeration of a lot of people, very well-known people, and some others you might not know. We're told that it was impossible, and they showed the impossible is possible. The hopeless is the hopeless. There's hope for the hopeless, and you can do it. That you can be invincible. So it'll be out. It'll be out Super Bowl. We just got a publisher. We're real excited about it, and keep an eye on it. It's The Last Laugh. So me and Danny Franks.
Well, we'll see you on Radio Row, and we can't wait to read it. Thanks so much, Vince. Appreciate it.
You'll be the first guy I call too, Zach. Hey, man, thanks a lot. Really love to talk to you. You're great.